happy early evening to all of you on the East Coast. It is currently 5:13 p.m. and we're up for another live stream. It was very interesting and very entertainment-filled during the Vault lunch hour live stream earlier today. Let's see if I can get half as much of that coming up in this episode. Eric DeCosta, Ravens general manager, recently sat down. This is probably within the last 24 hours or so if they turned it around, but it's definitely the first time he's spoken in an informal setting coming off of last weekend's draft press conferences and the 11 picks, the 11 selections that he and his front office made. So he sat down with the guys on the lounge, Garrett and Ryan. I've got some clips that I think are notable takeaways. We're going to get into that. And of course, Sarah and I will analyze it together coming up tomorrow. So welcome inside the channel. I'm Bobby Trosset. Tonight's brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. Scan that QR code in the upper right-hand corner if you're interested in checking out the exclusive perks that I have available to you. They're all vehicle perks. They're all Preston-related perks. I'm going to tell you about that in just a bit. But thank you guys for being with me. Please like the video on the way in. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell for me so that this channel can grow. I want to begin with Mike Green. And of course, he is the second round selection that the Ravens are bringing in from Marshall. He is an edge rusher that led all of FBS in sacks last year. I think a lot of you probably feel similarly around this fan base, that you have the most excitement about Mike Green right now of any of these 11 picks. And I get it, because this player has a motor. This player is highly productive, and this player fell into the Ravens' lap in the second round at 59 overall. And we all know, I won't continue to harp on it, we all know why he fell. John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta were asked a number of times this past weekend why they felt comfortable taking a flyer, much more than a flyer, taking an investment into Mike Green. And they shared a few thoughts of their homework that they did. But Eric went into a lot more detail and depth in this conversation that was just released courtesy of Ravens Productions. I've got audio clips for you of EDC sitting down with Garrett and Ryan, and this is what he had to say about the Mike Green selection and the overall fit in Baltimore.
Probably not. I mean, let's face it, there were allegations made that on Mike that he had to answer to and work that teams had to do. And we knew that going in. It wasn't like in the fall we didn't know that there were some issues with Mike. And but as a player, watching him as a player, one of my favorite players this year. Like, I think we do have a good idea what it takes to rush the passer in the NFL. And we've had a lot of really good players over the years as pass rushers. And Mike is just well-schooled. His technique, he's got a variety of moves, explosive off the football, tenacious player. He's stronger than he looks. I mean, this is a guy who can knock you back and set the edge and do those kind of things. He can drop and play in space. He's lightning quick on the backside, knifing down. He can beat tackles. He can do anything you want a guy to do. He can do it. And so, it wasn't like we weren't surprised by how good he was, because starting out in September of last year, he was one of the top-rated players on our board. And so we spent...
Even before he played the season?
Well, as we got into the season,
Yeah.
His tape was just so impressive that we got as much information as we could. We talked to as many people as we could. We sent in multiple area scouts. We got information from Virginia. We got information from Marshall. We talked to people in his hometown. I mean, we basically did as much as we could. And in the end, we made the decision to pick him. And we're excited about him as a player. We think he's going to flourish here with us. We think we have a great scheme for him to be his very best. And we think he's going to have a great career with us.
So that from Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta regarding Mike Green, the second round selection. He opened up a lot more than he did, I thought, in this past weekend's press conferences about Green, about the homework. He checked in really with all three big stops throughout his life leading into the NFL. High school as a Virginia kid, the University of Virginia, where he began his football career, and Marshall, where he ended his collegiate football career. So there's a number of different things that stick out to me when it comes to that answer from Eric. One, it reiterates their comfort level of the homework that they did indeed do on Mike Green. Two, it shows you a little bit more and peels back the curtain a little bit more in terms of what said homework looked like and consisted of. And three, it just speaks to how high they have been on Mike Green for well over a year now. In 2023, he played in all 13 games, one start. Okay, played in all 13 games, but just started one game. And yet he finished with 43 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. So you can see why Eric was high on this guy well over a year ago. He then, in 2024, just goes off. Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Year. First team all-conference. Led the FBS, as we've mentioned several times now, with 17 sacks. He ranked second with 22.5 TFLs. He led the team with 3 forced fumbles. He started all 13 games, more than doubled his sack total, or almost doubled his sack total from the year prior, his tackle total. Almost doubled his tackle total from 23 with 84. He had 2 PBUs and just across the board was seen as, from a talent perspective, a bona fide first-round selection. Now, when it comes to the rest of the room and the way Eric evaluates what he currently has in his pass rush department, I found it interesting. He went player to player, pick by pick over the years analysis. Sometimes not pick if it's Kyle Van Noy, who was brought in, obviously, in free agency a couple years ago. But this was interesting. Eric DeCosta, unfiltered on his room. He was really unfiltered throughout much of the conversation, particularly when it comes to Mark Andrews, which we'll get to in just a second here. But here is Eric on his pass rush department.
Look at Kyle Van Noy and what he's done in 2 seasons. Great player. Plays like a Raven. Tough, smart, polished. Rushes the passer. Can do all the different things. He's a leader. Odafe, double-digit sacks last year, right? Just continues to grow every single year. Having a great offseason. Expect huge things from him. Tavius is another guy. Tavius was a 4th-round pick. And he's like a real physical. He's a Raven. I mean, the way that guy plays, he fits us. Ojabo has overcome injuries. Still a very, very talented player. He's so hungry right now. I expect big things from him. It's right there for him. And then Adisa last year. So Adisa comes in. He's one of our higher players that we rated in the 3rd round. We get him last year. Had some soft tissue things. Had some injuries. Kind of had his first season derailed a little bit by that. But again, Adisa, when you think about that, it's like getting an additional draft pick this year. And then you take Mike Green, you put him in the mix. We got 6 really good, intriguing football players at Sam and rush linebacker.
Intriguing, sure, but I think this is ultimately the message that I think the Ravens sent by going to get Mike Green. There's more questions than there are answers in my mind when it comes to their pass rush department. Yes, there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of upside. There's a lot of potential. But who's going to crack that potential? Is David Ojabo truly capable of stacking health? And if he is healthy, a breakout kind of season? I can't confidently tell you that. Is Adisa Isaac capable in year 2 of taking a big step? I can't confidently tell you that. I guess when I look around the room, the most confidence that I have is that Odafe will continue to grow and develop and show you his versatility. Pretty sure with the push that they get from the interior part of this defensive line that Kyle Van Noy will continue to eat as a result. I also was curious and needed a refresher. And I went back to ESPN.com for last year's sack totals and sack leaders. And of course, Kyle Van Noy led the way, 12.5. and his fellow double-digit sack getter was Odafe Owe. As a team, they were second. They finished second league-wide, which, of course, the year prior, they were the top sack-getting team under Chuck Smith, where they were the trifecta as well for the first time in NFL history. I feel like I say this all the time, so let me know if you think I'm repeating, but it's pretty darn historic. They led the league in 3 categories that had never happened before: sacks, takeaways, and points allowed. 18 different players recorded at least 1 sack for Baltimore's defense a year ago. My question is, outside of KVN and Odafe, who's the player that's going to be that premier number 3? And is it realistic to think that Mike Green will be that immediately overnight as a rookie? I, for one, would question the reality of that right out of the gate. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a real chance to be a contributor, but I'm talking about who's flirting with that 8, 9, or perhaps even double-digit sack category as to form a trio with KVN and Odafe. And that's assuming, by the way, that Kyle's going to continue at the rate that he is at 33 years of age, which, of course, is an assumption. Now, based on what he's put on tape the last couple of years, maybe it's a safe assumption, but I don't know when his wall will be hit. At some point, he's going to hit that wall. And I'd have to think that Odafe, if I'm confident about any player, it's going to be him in the middle of a contract year with that 5th-year option, of course, that was exercised a season ago. Could Nnamdi Madubuike follow up his ridiculous season from 2023 with a double-digit campaign? I'd get on that board. But while Eric DeCosta notes that this is intriguing, again, to me, it's always been intriguing. But intriguing doesn't always lead and yield results. What say you, chat? Olu's hitting me with a super chat. And he writes, no one had Green's resume coming out of college. Ojabo was close, but had Hutch on the other side, Aiden Hutchinson. Green was the lead dog at Marshall. He sure was. How does that translate for him, Olu? I think the question remains, how much of a contributor will he be? I think he's going to be a rotational guy right out of the jump. They're going to be careful with him. Make sure that he develops carefully. Make sure that Chuck Smith can really groom him accordingly. But I don't know if I'm running to the bank to assume a double-digit sack season for his rookie year. I don't know if I'm doing that. The upside and the potential is all there, but there is a learning curve, of course. Interesting stuff there from Eric DeCosta and company. Some are wondering whether David Ojabo will take the leap. Is this year 4 for him already? What year was he taken in the second round? 2022. This will be year 4. Hard to believe for David Ojabo, who's only played, and let me make sure I get this correct, 18 total games across 3 years. Now, granted, it was a redshirt 2022 for the most part after that Achilles tear during his Michigan Pro Day. But I can't sit here and tell you that I'm going to hang my hat on that kind of prediction that Ojabo is worthy of being a breakout candidate. I think I'd probably put Tavius Robinson ahead of him in this department and assume that you're going to get consistency, push, and sheer force and technique. And, of course, assignments that will absolutely see multiple guys assigned to him from a double team perspective when it comes to Nnamdi Madubuike. Olu sticking his neck out there for a Mike Green prediction on the first day of May. I got to love it. 6 sacks. It's a good season. 8 sacks, great season for Mike Green. I can get behind that. How about the pressure number? How about the TFL number? How about the resiliency? How about the way he handles the rookie learning curve and the way that he learns from Chuck Smith and the way that he potentially benefits from a pretty experienced group? Well, not that experienced, but guys that have been around the league for a bit here, and Kyle Van Noy, and somebody that certainly can teach him the lay of the land when it comes to getting his body right, nutrition, day-to-day commitments, being in the NFL. I can get behind that, Olu. I think that's a very rational. How about this? I think it's a very rational prediction from you. What about the other headliner? Malachi Starks, of course, was selected 27th overall in Baltimore. PFF's got the Ravens, by the way, earning A and A- respectively in back-to-back drafts, and they call him elite. Malachi's been getting a lot of pub. NFL Live has spoken about his IQ, his processing, his playmaking. Saw a ridiculous image of one of his interceptions during his time at Georgia that, again, the athleticism, particularly the way that he performed out in Indianapolis, hasn't been one of his calling cards, hasn't been something that necessarily jumps off the page at you. But who cares if you're making plays like this and you're willing your defense and your team to stay in games, win games, and just show all out type of effort like this. Just exceptional. On that same podcast that Ravens Productions just conducted with Eric DeCosta, they asked him just how high was Malachi Starks on your board, being that he went 27th. And throughout all the mock process, throughout all the prediction game, and teams having Malachi up and down the first round, he ended up slipping, of course, the final few picks, the waning picks of that opening round. And Eric DeCosta made it clear that it was a steal.
You give any indication of just how high he was on our board?
Well, we picked, 27?
Yeah.
And he was much higher than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that happens a lot in the first round. We talk about the word I use is slippage, which is just basically players outside your range that get drafted. So anytime that happens, it's great because it pushes down one of your players. And so for us at 27, we have our list, 1, 2, 27. And, the quarterbacks may be in there, so that means you need more than 27 because you're probably not going to draft a quarterback with the first pick if you're the Ravens. So you need more than 27 players. You need 29 players if you have 2 first-round quarterbacks. So you got 29 players. Well, anytime a player is drafted outside your range of 29, you're like high-fiving because that's going to make it easier for one of your higher-rated guys, 29 and above, to make it to you. So Malachi was pretty darn high.
All right. Not a surprise to hear that they had Malachi Starks a lot higher, a lot higher than where they got him at 27th overall. And this is a player that brings a whole lot to Baltimore, and you just kind of get the sense. And here's the statistic that makes me feel confident in saying this. There was only one player in all of FBS over the last 3 seasons to have logged at least 1,500 snaps at safety and 500 snaps at slot cornerback, and his name is Malachi Starks. I'm not here to necessarily compare Malachi to his now teammate Kyle Hamilton because I don't think that would be fair. They have different body shapes, they play differently, and they're just straight up different players, obviously. But if there is an area to potentially play the comparison game, might it be within the versatility arena? Let me read that statistic for you once more. There's been one player over the last 3 seasons across all of FBS to play at least 1,500 snaps at safety and 500 snaps at slot corner, and his name is Malachi Starks. I don't need to remind any of you about Kyle Hamilton's versatility and his ability to pretty much play on all 3 levels interchangeably within Baltimore's scheme. And so if you bring in somebody that has that kind of savvy in Malachi Starks, not only does that open up Kyle Hamilton, does that free him up to be Zach Orr's chess piece the way they want him to be and the way that he couldn't be last year at times because of what they were dealing with, having to bench Marcus Williams and part ways with Eddie Jackson in season. Well, now you add in maybe a guy that has shades of Kyle Hamilton early on that you can rely on, that can be your free safety, that can play nickel, that's going to be a playmaker, that has that strong cerebral football IQ kind of mind, 6 career picks, 23 career PBUs, almost 200 career tackles, somebody that's going to be hungry. He's going to have a hunger, a growth mindset, somebody that wants to be coached. And these are the things that stick out about Malachi Starks. There were plenty of other players, by the way, at 27. And Eric DeCosta talked a little bit about not only Malachi's fit and overall game, but somebody who ended up going to Kansas City that would have been pretty enticing, but they did end up passing on there at 27.
Can you give any indication of just how high he was on our board?
With Malachi, you're truly looking at the best player at his position, and probably, when it all comes right down to it, maybe, arguably, the cleanest player at his position. Literally no questions whatsoever. There were some other really good players that were there when we picked. You know, and like, for instance, you know, Josh Simmons, Ohio State, tremendously talented, probably the best feet in the draft, coming off a patellar injury. So that just, in some ways, just slightly muddies the water. That's a great player, Josh Simmons.
Right.
You know, they got a great player. The Chiefs got a great player with a lot of upside.
Don't
probably
like seeing
gonna
the Chiefs get him.
I know. Probably going to be a Pro Bowl player at some point.
Right.
But he suffered a serious knee injury. So you have to, everything matters when you're evaluating these guys, and you're really trying to separate. And so for us, Malachi, it was like, what can't this guy do? He's going to play for us right away. He's smart. He's tough. He's a ball hawk. Tackles well. Instinctual. Great kid. Winning program. SEC. Like every box, literally. If there were 20 boxes, he checked off all 20 boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
High praise. And of course, he did play the comparison game for a second, or at least the scenario game that, of course, was happening in real time on Thursday night a week ago. Josh Simmons is the tackle that played for Ohio State, 6'5", 317, ends up going to the Kansas City Chiefs at the tail end there of the first round on opening night. But as Eric mentioned, the big knock is that torn patellar tendon in his left knee. He missed the final 10 games of last year's season. And when he is to play this upcoming year, and if it is September, he will have been less than a year removed from a significant injury. And when you're the stature of a Josh Simmons, 6'5", 317, and you're trying to come back from that kind of catastrophic setback, just begs the question, is it worth the flyer taking? It's more, I keep saying flyer. Is it worth the investment, that calculated gamble? The Ravens are taking a calculated gamble with Mike Green, given his background. Is that more of a gamble than the Chiefs with Josh Simmons, given that injury status? I would argue probably Kansas City is taking the bigger gamble, and that's probably me giving the benefit of doubt to the Ravens staff with the way that they've opened up about some of the homework that they did indeed do that ultimately allowed them to feel comfortable about using the 59th overall selection on Mike Green, given what's happened with him in recent years off the football field. So what it comes down to is you're balancing things out here. You're trying to play play a game here and ultimately protect your own ass by making the best, most savvy, most informed decision. And the Ravens felt like they did that at 27 and 59 overall. I thought that was interesting stuff. Not only called Malachi the best player at his position, but the cleanest player at his position. And those are two things that are going to ultimately help out the Ravens right out of the gate. Tonight is brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. And the Bobby Baltimore Bronco has gotten great usage over the last year and a half. I did tell that funny story yesterday. I'll tell it again in a second if you missed it. My incident in Canton on the road. But first, my friends at Preston got everything going on. And if you're looking for your next ride, check them out. You can click on the link that's included in the show notes. It's also a pinned comment right now in the live chat. That'll bring you right to PrestonMotor.com. They got locations nearby if you're in the Maryland area. Aberdeen, Randallstown, all across Delmarva. The beauty of it, too, is they do ship nationwide. So if you're not in the Maryland area, like I know a lot of you have since relocated, Preston Motor, still a great option for you. They got the selection and the deals to get you on the road today. Over 2,000 vehicles to choose from. Home delivery is available. They got exclusive offers just for you as a Bobby Baltimore subscriber. There's no better time to shop Preston. Those deals include, as I've told you in the past, $500 towards a newer pre-owned vehicle. Just let them know Bobby sent you when you go into one of their dealerships, or if you or buy 4 tires and you'll receive 50% off your alignment if you tell them that I sent you. You can contact them this way with any questions, or just start perusing right now. Over 3,600 vehicles to choose from right now in their available inventory section. If you just toggle down, you can search by make, model, and keyword, price, vehicle condition, year, make. I mean, keep going. Dealership, look at all these different options. Aberdeen, Dover, Georgetown, Delaware, Hurlock, Maryland, Keller, VA, Lewis, Delaware, Millsboro, Pittsville, Randallstown, Wilmington. I mean, it's just such an honor to continue to partner with these guys. It really is. Check them out. Ford, Hyundai, Nissan, Mazda, and more. Whatever you're looking for, Preston has a location near you. You can visit PrestonMotor.com. Start shopping today. Here's the quick story on what took place earlier this week. I'm on my way back from Rita's in Canton. I got the watermelon flavor Italian ice small. There is no medium for whatever reason. I have no idea why. So it's either large or small, and the large is jumbo. So I'm not doing that. Can't even do ice cream as it is. So it's Italian ice, but that's a conversation for another day. And I'm driving down Boston Street back towards the Fells area. Got to take a right. And right in front of the Outback Steakhouse is a vehicle, unbeknownst to me, because there's a car in front of me that is blocking it. But there is an Uber Eats driver that has his flashers on and is posted up going to pick up some food, seemingly, at Outback. Well, the car in front of me maybe didn't see it either, because at the last second, he swerves into the left lane to avoid that car, that vacant, not vacant. Yes, I guess at the time it was a vacant car, but that stalled car right then and there, which makes me being right up against the car in a moment's notice. It wasn't anything crazy. I just hit the brakes, but the guy behind me hits his brakes as well. And instead of staying in the right lane, he swerves over to the left so he can keep going. I see it out of my rear view mirror the entire time. It was a little close for comfort, so I give him a little scoff. We're both giving each other a little look, half second as he whizzes by. A couple more cars go by. I'm still stuck on the right-hand side. Finally, I get over to the left lane just to end up going back over to the right lane because I need to take a right at the light to get to Canton, to get back into my neighborhood. And as I am approaching the end of the lane, or at least up until the car that's in front of me at the red light, I notice that the guy who just drove by me, and we had a nice little moment, is stopping well behind the car that was in front of him at the left lane. In other words, there's about to be a mano-a-mano interaction, me in the right lane, he in the left lane, because I had nowhere to go, and he was making sure that we were going to be adjacent. We've all been there in the Baltimore area. You don't have to be in the Baltimore area, I'm sure, to have a story like this. You're bracing yourself, right? You're checking yourself, and ultimately you're just praying to God that this doesn't go south. Now, I'm one to talk. I think you guys probably know that. I'm not going to back down from anybody. I will have conversations. I'm not the biggest, most threatening dude out there at 5'8", $175, but I can talk. And I can talk. And I was ready to talk on this one. It wasn't going to be anything crazy. I was just going to say, well, you couldn't stay in the right lane? Before I could even get a freaking word out, I look over. He's looking at me, and he goes, "Bobby, love the show, brother. Keep up the good work." Drives off. His name is Abdul. I thought it was hilarious. It went from 100 to 0 in a literal second. Somebody's got to help me find Abdul. I want him to call in and tell this story because I chuckled. I got a great chuckle out of that. I got to tell you. I did not see that going in that direction. It was refreshing given the Baltimore roads. So Abdul, thank you for being a subscriber. Thank you for watching the show. And thank you for making my Tuesday evening. That is my long-winded story from the Baltimore roads on Boston Street in Baltimore City. As we continue, takeaways from Eric DeCosta's recent sit-down with Ravens Productions. Let's talk Mark Andrews. Wasn't all that long ago that he released a statement leading into draft weekend on ESPN.com that read as follows. Of course, this was in response to trade speculation, and this was the quote. At the end of the day, I think Eric DeCosta said it perfectly. He's in the business of keeping great players, and it's a business at the end of the day. You can't be surprised by anything, but I am a Raven. Andrews also told ESPN, as Sarah tweeted, that his gloves were, quote, soaked heading into the final 2-point conversion against the Bills in the divisional playoff, which really isn't about what we're talking here. We've covered this before. I want to focus on his future, where he's headed, and ultimately how he was handling draft weekend with all the smoke, with all the speculation. That's something that Eric DeCosta expanded on earlier today when this episode was released. I thought it was interesting. Not only talking about Mark Andrews and the trade speculation and perhaps some of the calls that he alludes to that he received, but also passing on this year's strong tight end class, given that every single tight end, including the fullback that is on the roster for 2025 in Baltimore, is not on that roster, or at least is not guaranteed to be on that roster come 2026, meaning they are all entering contract years. Here's Eric.
Mark is a great player.
Yeah.
And we're not really in the business of letting our great players leave unless we're going to get a lot for them, because our best team is with Mark Andrews on it. Let's face it. Our best chance to win a Super Bowl is with Mark Andrews on the team. Mm-hmm. And so I think teams knew that. We had, some discussion potentially early on in the process, going back in March. And it just became apparent to me that I value Mark more than anybody else. We value Mark more than most teams, anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so based on that, we're going to keep our best players. And so, it was a really good tight end draft class this year. I think 5 or 6 guys that watching these guys, whether it's, Loveland or Warren or Arroyo or Taylor. Yeah. I thought the Fanning kid, Ferguson. You got 6 tight ends that really have a chance to contribute quickly. We would have considered those guys for sure, and just had 4 tight ends on the roster.
And you have 3 going into contract years this year,
so we would have easily taken a tight end.
Right.
The way that those guys came off the board, I think maybe 5 of those guys came off the board maybe before we picked in the second round.
Yeah.
Right? Fannin might have been the last guy standing, and he got picked pretty quick too. So, I think the league values tight ends. We're blessed that we have some good tight ends. Definitely something that we have to work on in the short term and in the long term, given that they're all free agents. But I think right now we have an abundance of riches at both running back and tight end, and we're going to use those guys.
Ain't that the truth? The quote that stood out to me, quote, I value Mark more than anybody else. That certainly suggests that there was interest, perhaps a call or calls about Mark Andrews, and what Eric heard on the other end of that call was not satisfactory, or at least it wasn't satisfactory enough in order for him to give up Lamar's security blanket, to give up really one of the cornerstone pieces of this franchise, offensively speaking, over the last 7 years, and somebody that obviously, I'm sure personally, will be out for redemption, will be out for revenge. And when it comes to revenge, really, he's just trying to get revenge for his mistake that he made, that he's had to live with all offseason long, in that pivotal play and that pivotal drop that ultimately helped decide the divisional round loss in Buffalo. So to me, I'm sure there were calls. I'm sure there was interest. But Eric's a smart guy, and he covets picks. He covets the draft season, and ultimately he covets his best players. The Ravens are better. They are better for having Mark Andrews around. I continue to believe that. I continue to believe in him, and I think he's going to have a stellar 1,000-yard season coming up. He did not last year after his slow start statistically. Some of that had to do with the mouths to feed. A lot of that had to do with his slow start, given everything he was dealing with, including a very serious car accident during training camp that forced him to miss some time. So that's where I'm at it. I won't waver on that at all, barring something unforeseen. I know everybody has an opinion about this when it comes to Mark Andrews and his future. As far as right now and moving forward, he, Charlie Kohler, Isaiah Likely, and Pat Ricard all make up this room and are all under contract through 2025. And then after that, let's see. Clearly Likely as the youngest, as the most upside, as the most potential freak athlete type of player that he is, really a wide receiver in a tight end's body, you would think is the future. We've seen crazier things happen in and around Baltimore. I'll be very, very, very curious to see how this plays out this time next year during free agency next year in March of 2026. More from Eric DeCosta. He talked about the running backs just there, right? That there's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to these two positions, tight ends and running backs. But he didn't draft either one of those positions, at least, again, on Thursday through Saturday. In the actual draft, I'm sure there'll be undrafted rookies that get a chance. But no running back, no tight end. He talked about not drafting any running backs.
But we tried. I channeled my inner Mike Ditka. We offered every draft pick this year and all of our draft picks next year to go up to take Genty. And we just couldn't find a trade partner.
No one would do it, huh?
I thought maybe there was a chance we could get up to 3, but they didn't want to do it.
20 picks wasn't enough.
Quite elite.
They didn't want to do it. But no, I think this was a really, really good draft class for running backs. In saying that, as we look at our position group, we're pretty blessed. I mean, we've got, I think a great room. We've got 4 deep that we feel really, really strong about. And I think Rasheen last year, he hasn't really shown people what we think he can do. He's an explosive running back. And, Keaton coming off an injury, Justice Hill, one of the probably most unsung players on our team. And then, of course, Derrick Henry, who had an elite season last year. So we feel blessed to have 4 backs that we feel like can go in and play, play extremely well, given the chance. Not to say we wouldn't have taken him back. It just had to be a situation where, for us, the value was too good to pass up. In other words, we're not looking at a chalk player. We're not looking at, this is a good second-round pick. We're looking at, oh, my God, we got to take this guy. He's too good for us to pass up on. And it just didn't really materialize that way based on which players were on the board when we picked.
Am I surprised that the Ravens didn't select a running back and or tight end all throughout the weekend? Somewhat. But obviously they're very, very well equipped at both positions. He mentioned Rasheen Ali. He was the rookie 5th rounder from a year ago that you didn't see much of outside of special teams. The knock on him coming out of college was ball security. And that's obviously something I remember that rearing its ugly head. Was it during a training camp session? I have to go back and look, but that gives you some pause. If he can be a special teamer for you, great. Obviously, they're looking at who their return specialist is going to be. You'd think that LeJontay Wester will get a chance, being that he had a lot of production in college at Colorado and prior to that, FAU. He's also a rangy wide receiver as well that can take the top off of a defense. Maybe Tylan Wallace gets another shot at it as well. Maybe Rasheen Ali and Keaton Mitchell get a little bit of work at punt returner. So I'm going to be watching this one for sure, because there were a lot of talented running backs and tight ends, and the Ravens decided to stand pat, which, of course, reaffirms, I should say, their belief in what they have in those respective rooms. And I got to tell you, George, you're cracking me up here. George says, as soon as somebody mentions Mark, this guy pops up. He's riding the bench, dude. In what world do you think Mark Andrews is riding the bench? Do you think the Ravens are better off with Mark Andrews or in 2 tight end sets, multiple tight end sets with either Isaiah Likely and or Charlie Kohler out there? I'm going to go with the latter of those two options, George. And if I'm a betting man, Mark Andrews is not riding any bench in what could very well become his final season in Baltimore, barring an injury, barring something that's just completely out of this world. So I don't know what kind of alternate universe that you're chilling in right now, but Mark Andrews is going to be a part of this team. I'm standing 10 toes down, 11 if you want 10. How many toes you want? 11? Let's go 11 toes down. Mark Andrews is going to be a part of this team for the foreseeable future. There's no question about that. What else do we have here from takeaways? Oh, this was funny. Couple things interesting here. One, Eric was pretty honest and forthcoming about the anxiety, to use his word. That's the specific word that he used, anxiety, that he was feeling and dealing with in the first round of the draft on Thursday night. And then he just straight up admitted to lying. Which one should we go to first? Let's go first round anxiety. Listen to this.
This draft gave me, particularly the first round, I had a lot of anxiety in the first round this year. Last year, not as much. It's been a few years, even like the Zay draft, not as much. This year, there were a lot of potholes along the way with the players in this draft in the first round. It's a very, very flat draft. So you had players in that just sort of dropped, and then it was flat for a long time. So I was nervous about this draft. And, if people would have asked me, I would have said, one of the best possible outcomes would be Malachi being there. Mm-hmm. And he was. And so from that standpoint, there was tremendous relief for me at the end of that first round.
Interesting. Tremendous relief, anxiety, nervous. Eric DeCosta kind of being forthcoming. Pretty transparent about how that opening round was him and what he had to endure. Then, this was probably the most hilarious part of the entire interview. And in order to have the context, here's what you need. This is Zaribek who transcribed this over last weekend when the Ravens were doing some shuffling in the 5th round. He was asked about the trade with the Titans to move back 5 in the 4th and move up 5 in the 5th with Tennessee. And DeCosta, during the press conference, referred to it as an analytics thing. Okay? An analytics thing, a strategy that we use based on the board and the type of players that were there. And I remember kind of scratching my head at the time. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Here's Eric.
Honestly, I just made all that up. That was like, I made all that up.
Well, I ate it up.
And people are still trying to figure that out. I just imagine like all these people going, what did he say? And, he said 4 or 5 different things, and none of those things really make sense.
Okay.
The reality of it was there were really 2 reasons why we made that trade. One, they had just brought out the buffalo chicken dip, and I really wasn't. I wasn't in a mind frame to pick because I wanted to get some of that buffalo chicken dip, and I knew that George Kokinis and Mark Acevedo were going to be out there eating that dip, and so that was part. And the second one was just, and this happens every once in a while. This happened back when we drafted Flacco, but Chad Steele was in the bathroom at the time. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't make a pick without Chad being in there. So we had to, basically that trade was like a timeout.
Gotcha.
That's all it was. It really
for just Chad to get out of the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah, you're knocking on the door. Chad, what's going on in there? What
that trade was like a timeout, but we didn't have any timeouts. So we faked an injury. That's what that was.
Didn't they make that a penalty now?
Yeah, but you got to catch them. So that's what that trade was. Honestly, like if I really want to boil it down, I know a lot of people have thought about that trade.
Yeah.
That trade was a timeout for us. And it was just basically, faking an injury, and the clock stopped and gave us a chance to regroup.
An analytics thing, huh? A strategy that we use based on the board and the type of players that were there. This guy's hilarious. And Cameron, you're right. He is a professional liar. We have seen this a time or two in a press conference setting. His poker face is next level. He should honestly, after his GM career comes to an end, and who knows when it's all said and done, he could be looked at in a similar light to the way that Ozzie was when it comes to his drafting. Long way to go, but if Lamar wins a Super Bowl, that conversation could be had. Now, Ozzie won a pair of titles, of course, so Eric's got more room and more, obviously, more of a hill to climb, but a pretty darn good start. But after his career is over in football ops, Why don't you just head on over to the professional? What do they call it? Isn't there like a professional poker league? He may want to highly consider that. Hysterical stuff. Sarah and I will get into it more tomorrow on the vault. As always, I appreciate you guys for being here. Tell you what, George is testing my patience here today. You know what's funny? In the off season, I go to 6 a.m. F45 workouts. Now, I do that here and there in season, but it's very hard to keep up with that kind of schedule when you're essentially doing anywhere between, 15 to 20 live streams that can go anywhere from an hour to 2 hours per week. It's impossible to keep that schedule up all throughout the season, but I have been very, very consistent this offseason, and I've noticed that once the 5 o'clock hour comes around, it's about to be 6 o'clock, and I'm doing my second live stream of the day, and I've been up since 5:30. I don't have as much patience. I become just ever so slightly grouchy. But when George comes in here and he's acting a fool, I probably have less patience for you, George. But what are you going to do? I'll go easy on you today, George, because I appreciate you being here. How about that? I got all my flair out during the live stream earlier today. How's that? Oh, goodness. What else? You guys got any Q&A before I get on out of here? Not really any dating updates, honestly. There's just not a whole lot to give you right now. I'm just kind of in the process of getting ready to move out May 25th and host my family the weekend prior for my brother's graduation at Loyola. So it'll be sort of like everybody's going to be convening into Baltimore or descending onto Baltimore. Sister and her fiance are coming in from Denver. I don't know. Parents are coming in. I'm being distracted right now by a crying baby that's outside my window because I have it cracked because it's really nice out. And because I really haven't had a chance to have my windows open at all over the course of the last several weeks because of this construction project, this water line project, literally living in a construction pit. It's a first world problem, but it's impossible when you are a streamer, when you're a broadcaster and your studio is literally in the middle of a pit. The house just shakes all day long. Now, I have become buddy-buddy with the project manager so that I can make sure the Bronco is in good standing and not in harm's way when it comes to potential friendly fire with gravel thrown. There's shit everywhere. There's just stuff in the air. It's insane. George, I'm kind of wanting you to call in, to be honest with you. I tell you what, George is making me right now, actually, on second thought. He's making me want to have him call into the show right now. George, if I drop a link right now, will you come on the show and talk to me the way you are in the live chat, face to face? How about it? Because the last time, here's what happens most times. And I think this is just a natural phenomenon when it comes to social media. Very rarely, when you got somebody running their mouth in a live chat, in a forum, in a comment section, whatever it is, very rarely that when you address them, either individually or publicly the way that I am now, very rarely do they keep that same energy. I always find that to be hilarious. And I actually find it to be extremely satisfying. I just DM'd somebody the other day. I don't always do this, but I had a little bit of time. And he's just ripping my ass on Twitter. He's ripping my ass in the comment sections, so on and so forth. So I was finally you know what? I'm going to go find his @ and I'm going to hit him up. Let me see if I can actually read it for you, word for word. I found this to be hysterical. Here it is. He hits me up and he says, "Do better." That's after a lot of other choice words. So I wrote him back just to kind of get under his skin a little bit. And I said, "I'll do me and you do you, big dog." That's what I told him. He sent me a 33-second audio clip. Let's see if you guys can hear this. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Oh, wait, why can't I play it? No, I want to play it. Oh, it's not letting me play, but it was brutal. Like he was throwing some haymakers at me. And of course, it's not letting me play it over the stream. But believe me, it's there. So it's 33 seconds of just horrific language, horrific threats, just all kinds of stuff. And he goes, man, you a sucker. He called me a sucker. A sucker. So I wrote back to him. I said, so don't watch the show then. And I go, some of you are not going to like this. I said, miss me with that race card bullshit. That shit's so tired, in response to the whole Shador stuff. He goes, I won't watch anymore, but it's facts. Be safe, though. So I wrote him back. I said, I won't stop you from having an opinion. We're going back and forth. This does not happen all that often. So how about this? Later on that weekend, for whatever reason, at 12:41 in the morning, I'm probably still ripped off Ghost energy drinks at that point. I had just finished 20 hours of combined live coverage. I wrote him back. I said, tell me why you think, oh, okay, this must have been technically after Friday going into Saturday, but still I was in the middle of just an insane weekend. And I go, tell me why you think Shador's name hasn't been called yet. Listen to what he writes me back. LOL, I kind of respect your vibe, and I owe you an apology. I just hate how one group gets a pass while another gets judged for doing the same thing. But even when we disagree, I don't need to play the race card or be disrespectful. We're just different. We won't always agree, and it's your job to have opinions on players. I hate what's happening to Shador. I think some of the hate he gets is because of the hate for his father. Shador is better than several quarterbacks drafted before him. I hope he destroys the NFL like Lamar. But we all know this is BS, all because he believes in himself. So I wrote him. I said, hey, thanks for the note. I get it's a hot button item with a slew of highly complex layers attached to it. I'd encourage you to check out the second half of tonight's live stream. Sarah and I had a good spirited debate on the topic that maybe you'll find interesting. He writes me back with a will do and a handshake emoji. Why do I read this entire DM exchange? First of all, I found it interesting. Second, it went from literally murderer's row to handshakes. I'm not sure if I'd handshake him in person because I got no clue who this guy is or what he's about. But the reason why I bring it up is so seldom when you call out somebody like this, did they hit you with that same energy? And that to me is so telling about society. It's so telling about social media. So anyway, let me go ahead and scroll up because there's 50 plus comments in here since I started ranting. And let's see if George accepted my invitation. And you guys can let me know right now if I missed it. Joe Jenkins, thank you for the super chat. Don't let idiots get to you. Bro, fools are fools. Appreciate you, Joe. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun back and forth, an opportunity to have a little bit of a conversation. I appreciate the super chat. Help me out here, though. Did I miss a yes, an exception, or I should say an acceptance of the invitation to join the show? George, where are you at? Let's see. This is true, James. I never said anything about race. All I said is that do not pull the race card when it comes to the argument or the debate of Shador Sanders. There is no collusion. There is no race card. The NFL spoke. You have to accept it. George, you got an open invitation right now. You're in the live chat, and I'm allowing you to come speak to 400 plus, which is a pretty modest audience for a Thursday. It's a quiet week post-draft, and he wants nothing to do with it. George wants absolutely nothing to do with coming on the show. We'll try it again. George is saying, don't try to get a W on me when Sarah lost or when lost Sarah. I thought it was a good argument. I feel like I won it. She feels like she won it. That's how debate goes. We'll let it go. Oh, he's ducking all right, Cameron. He's ducking. You know, I got to give a shout out to my guy, Dave. Do you guys remember Dave down in the Carolinas? Dave came on this show in season last year. He was cursing the shit out of me in the live chat. Always does, by the way. Still does. But he dropped a super chat donation, accepted the invitation. And my, oh my, He came on here and we had an awesome conversation face to face. Do you guys remember that? That was awesome. That was awesome. But George, just so you know, as of right now, when it comes to your legacy, on this show on the 1st of May, the month of OTAs, the month of the schedule release, the month of the off-season program taking center shape on a beautiful, ripe day in late spring here in Baltimore, Maryland. Your legacy is tainted in my mind, my guy, because you folded when the lights were bright. I want you to remember that. The next invitation that comes through. All in good fun. All right, I see some people in the live chat that think that I didn't win the debate, but whatever you guys, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I like the way it aged. We'll see. We'll have to do some sort of, I don't know, poll. We'll do a poll when we get a chance. Hey, Zone. Hey, Zone, you like that little clapback I gave you earlier this week? About Shador's name being spelled wrong and Jax Ulbricht's apology? That shit had me cracking up. I did you a little bit dirty, didn't I? Cameron wants to know, why do I defend Aaron so passionately? I don't know if it's necessarily defending him. I know that he comes with a circus, and I know that at times he acts extremely arrogantly and outlandishly. Some of that I think he's earned, given what he's done in the league. You know, I think in a lot of ways he earned the right to kind of steer the Jets in a certain direction, control a lot of their decision making, put his foot down. Ultimately, it didn't work out for them. But I've been on record for saying before that I like kind of an enigma. I try to be an enigma in my personal life in a lot of ways as well. And I think at times he can be a little bit misunderstood. He stands up for what he believes in. He is unapologetic. Those are character traits that I admire. So while there are some red flags, like why he's totally ghosted his family and hasn't really been able to maintain personal relationships romantically over the years, and definitely is arrogant, I can appreciate some of those other qualities that he has. I think he's extremely eloquent. He's extremely well-spoken. He's one of the best throwers of the football that this game has ever seen. I think he sees the game just at an extremely high level. Clearly, guys want to play for him and with him. And I also respect somebody that is well-versed, like outside of their craft. RFK literally wanted him to be his running mate. I think he's extremely well-studied. And that's some of the reasons why I like Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. What? Excuse my French. Why the fuck do you want me to apologize to Sarah? Be more cat? I think you should apologize to Sarah, sit back and think about it. That's what a man would do. What? Apologize for what? That's when you got to get the McGregor clip. I want to take this opportunity. See, the problem is, I'm sure Be More Cat is cool. I'm sure it's a good person, he or she. I don't know if that was said in jest or whatever, but part of like today's world that just absolutely it just leaves me mind boggled is this idea that everybody owes somebody an apology, that everybody's going to choose to be offended by these micro insignificant things that happen in life. I just refuse to live in this world of woe is me. That's a tough one for me there. That's a tough one, Be More Cat. Yeah. Unfiltered, Bobby. Fuck it. Well, anyway, it's time for me to jump. It is a beautiful night outside, and I got to get Tilly some dinner. And I got to get ready for everything that we got coming up to close out the week tomorrow. So hopefully you guys will join us. It's a 12 p.m. start time, as always, on Friday at the Vault. And maybe, just maybe, I'll fit something in the late afternoon. We'll see what the news cycle warrants. No phone lines today. Just got to over an hour of content. And as you can tell, I am a little bit unfiltered right now. Not that that's a bad thing. But I appreciate you. Be More Cat says, I am still misunderstanding. Feel free to clarify, expand in the live chat. You guys are welcome to do it. Hit 800 members yesterday, which I was very thrilled to do in the Discord server. It's an awesome community that's growing every single day. Evan's apparently got a fantasy league that's starting up. But if you guys are interested in joining, it's a 24/7 hub for conversations surrounding Baltimore sports. And you can join by visiting the show notes or just click on the link that I just dropped into the live chat right now. It is free. It's a great area to hang out, meet some other like-minded Baltimore sports fans. We talk Terps. We talk Ravens. We talk Orioles. We talk Washington Capitals hockey that they're moving on into the NHLs, Stanley Cup playoffs. We talk general shit. You get a welcome notification and an announcement when you show up. I would love for you to do it. I've also been posting a lot more reels lately. Would love for you guys to follow me on Instagram if you don't already. My @ is @BobbyBaltimore. Last night, I shared the story of this whole car situation. I guess the road rage that never was. I definitely need to beat Abdul. Somebody help me track down Abdul. But come hit me up. Lots of content being dropped here. @BobbyBaltimore. Help me get to 11K if you so choose. Discord, Instagram, Twitter, and of course right here inside the Bobby Baltimore YouTube channel. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. I'll catch up with you guys soon. Appreciate you for being with me. Maybe it is Abdul Carter Evan. You never know. I guess we'll never know. Later. Talk to you soon.